Greetings everyone. India is going to be completing 8 years of GST in a couple of days from now. We've done our GST at 8 survey. It's our flagship survey from Deloitte. It's our 4th survey in a row. We did a GST at 5, 6, 7 and 8. The highlight of the survey is the positive sentiment. We are sitting at 85% positive sentiment, and that's moved up from 59% in 2022. So over the journey, we've seen an increase in the sentiment getting positive. With that, I have an esteemed panel from Ms. Tejaswini Rajwade from IBM, and she's the CFO there. We have Mr. Nagendra Kumar, who's a senior advisor and former member of the board. Thank you both of you for being with me this morning, and thank you for the time.
Thank you, Mahesh. It's good to be back, and congratulations on completing the survey.
Thank you. Happy to hear your inputs on what do you feel the journey has been so far, and why are the respondents happy?
It's not surprising that the respondents are happy, because I do think the government has made great strides in helping the enterprises as also meeting the government's objectives. And what I mean by that we have now a unified tax regime for the IT, ITES sector, which has helped us tremendously because we are as a sector, we are extremely geographically diverse. And because of our diversification, having a unified tax regime really helps us. Another area where I must say it has helped us in having a tax law for the sector in the arena of exports, addressing issues like data hosting as well as intermediaries. Last but not the least, on cash, the streamlining of the refund process, Mahesh, has really helped us in freeing up our working capital and liquidity. All positive steps in the right direction.
Thank you, Tej. I'm pretty sure if I had interviewed you 8 years ago, these answers would have had a lot of nervousness, because this sector was the most worried about multi-state taxation, and from your message, the headline seems to be that it's all is well, at least at the starting level. And it's interesting that our respondents, actually 963 of them, with 29% being MSME, who in a way it resonates what you say. So thanks, Tej. Mr. Kumar, moving to you, I think with the survey getting into a lot of details, are we poised for the GST 2.0 with the record high collections, with the sentiment being high, and the journey of GST, if I put it in my lens of 3 aspects: the law change and the settling of the law in the first few years, settling of the technology, and then the audit's assessment. In these 3 buckets, I think we've all traveled a journey, but from your lens, what's your take on the survey, and what do you think in store for 2.0 for us?
48% of the respondents have reposed faith in the government's responsiveness and the proactive engagement in addressing the industry-specific needs. One of the important measures taken by the government in the last year has been addressing the related party transactions by issuing a circular. The year 2024 has been a blockbuster year in terms of issuance of very important circulars relating to data hosting, on IST cross-charge, as well as on the related party transactions. The government has been responsive and proactive in adapting to the industry demands and has been addressing these problems in a very expeditious manner.
You summarized it well into the buckets of export, deemed supply, and streamlining of audits and assessment. And I like the fact you call it a blockbuster year in 2024. So Tej, coming to you in terms of the bronze anniversary of GST, what do you feel are the priority areas that the government should focus on GST 2.0 for the IT/ITES sector?
The GST on its bronze anniversary has indeed struck gold. And I think the government's proactiveness in addressing our sector and industry issues have helped us tremendously. What is really going to help the IT/ITES sector is accelerating or addressing in a very succinct manner the legal ambiguities, particularly, Mahesh, in the areas of what constitutes export, because we have seen tax officials question our export status, which is really not helping. Another area is, again, I will go back to what really hurts a business is the working capital and liquidity. And I think allowing cross utilization of central GST with the GST across multiple states that we operate in will really be a step forward in the right direction for us. And last but not the least, audit and audit assessments is something which is front and center of our minds, because we are coming to the statute of limitations, Mahesh, and therefore I think clarity and sorting out certain industry issues which we have brought forward will really help us immensely.
Thank you, Tej. So you said export, working capital and audit is a three tenets which actually has even been called out in the survey. I like the detailing around it. Mr. Kumar, building on what Tej just mentioned on the first part on exports, you called out earlier that there's been responsiveness from the government around clarity on data centers. There's an intermediary circular in 2021. But what's your take? Because now India is poised for the next level of growth on the export front. How can GST help that growth journey, sir?
Mahesh, I think insofar as the export status relating to ITS industry is concerned, one of the pain point continues to be on the interpretation of intermediary services. I understand that the government has constituted a committee of officers to look into the details and come out with a comprehensive solution. The second important issue, I think what we need to look at this point of time is to provide for clarity in terms of the export position. In the context of the GCCs coming into India, I think what we are looking at is the clarity with regard to export position and not to tax exports in either in the input stage or denying the export status on the output services.
So when you say that, from an export standpoint, there are aspects around intermediary, performance-based, which you're hoping we go with more the global practice of follow the B2B billing and look no further. Would that be a fair summary?
Yes, I think it's time now we need to look at those good practices from the cross jurisdictions and adopt it to make our exports more competitive.
Thank you. Tej, you called out audits as an important area, and you also acknowledged that there is a period of limitation why we see a heightened level of audits. Interestingly, 62% of our participants have said almost 50% and above audits culminate into tax demands, and this has gone up from 43% just a year ago. So we see that increase, and therefore from your lens, what do you think the government can do to streamline more from an audit experience perspective from industry, and for it to be, an easy journey, if I were to say, or relatively easier journey than where we are now?
I think easily addressed and will help ease of doing business is the SEZs. The SEZs are a very regulated operation in itself, and for the SEZs it would be good that we acknowledge that they are largely export oriented, if not completely export oriented. Therefore, tax officers making demands or questioning these export status of these entities really creates a lot of churn, which I think we could avoid. Another area is that I think multiple and parallel assessments between center and state authorities can be avoided, because from our perspective we are the one entity, right? And last but not the least, I think that would really help is accelerating or expediting the operationalization of GST tribunals. I think this, given how long we've been into this, is something which should be prioritized. One, because it will help to reduce the recovery proceedings that we are seeing, and secondly and more importantly, the number of writ petitions that we are required to file with the high courts, which is just cumbersome but also expensive.
Thank you, Tej. Very insightful, and the SEZ part in particular has an interplay of compliance and process that you have to under the commerce regulations as well as the taxation. With that, Mr. Kumar, your closing and final thoughts for the IT/ITS sector.
Mahesh, I think GST 2.0 should really be looking at some of the forward-looking reforms. There has been constant demand from the industry with regard to working capital difficulties in GST. I think we need to provide for a solution in terms of discharging the tax liability on reverse charge through the input tax credit, and also I think refunding of the accumulated input tax credit at the end of the year. And perhaps it's also time that we need to look at revisiting some of those restrictions imposed on credit on infra. I think this would definitely release the cash flow for the industry, and make our exports more competitive.
Thank you. I like that closing remark because we are at the cusp of AI-related investments and expansion, and therefore some clarity around the CapEx-related credits would also help industry. Thank you. It's been a pleasure speaking to both of you and appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mahesh. Thank you, Mahesh.
Thank you, sir.